I am YORI FOLARIN. Well, now the meeting, long expected, it has happened yesterday, and the heads of government, they've all met and agreed, and we heard from the Ecowas president yesterday as he read out the communique. Now, long story short, all options open, still open in Niger, including the use of force, even though it is hoped that it is diplomacy that will prevail. Diplomacy and dialogue will prevail. That is the hope, but all options, as initially stated, are very much still on the table. Okay, just before we go into it, let's just do a bit of a recap, and Sifon Essien, our defense correspondent, has this report.
It's becoming even more gloomy for a country with nearly 25 million people as ECOWAS orders the activation and deployment of its standby force to restore constitutional order in Niger. The junta, in defiance of overtures by the regional bloc, announced a list of 21 people they say will become ministers in a new government. The order for the deployment of force does not foreclose political resolution of the impasse.
The decision of the ECOWAS heads of government to activate the standby force, actually comes to me and most Nigerians and global family as a real shock. It's really shocking to note that they have decided to say they put all options open. As far as I'm concerned, the option of military intervention shouldn't be on the table.
The ECOWAS standby force has been deployed at least 2 times in recent years. The first time was in 2012 to Guinea-Bissau after a coup, while the second time was in 2022 to the same country after another coup attempt. The standby force, made up of military, police, and civilian components, is consistent with Chapter 8 of the United Nations Charter, which provides for regional peace and security arrangements. A partial legal basis is given by Article 21 of the ECOWAS Protocol relating to the mechanism for conflict prevention, management, resolution, peacekeeping, and security of December 1999. It's unclear what the deployment strategy of the standby force would be, but what is certain is that nothing is off the table. Sifon Essien, TVC News, Abuja.
Okay, thanks to Sifon Essien, and as he noted in the last line of that report, nothing is off the table. Now, let me just quickly say that our guest this morning is the former president of NUJ, the former president of the NJ, former member of the House of Representatives, former senior special assistant to former President Muhammadu Buhari on public affairs and strategy, working out of the office of the then First Lady. Good morning to you, Honorable Sani Zoro.
Thank you very much, Chief, for the opportunity. Good morning.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, the position now is that ECOWAS has doubled down. And quite frankly, there wasn't anywhere else for them to go, was there? Considering ECOWAS's disposition towards coup and, shall we say, the determination of the coupists in Niger to not budge either. ECOWAS couldn't let itself be cast in the light of a toothless bulldog and that nothing will happen, can it?
That's right. The coup makers in Niger are digging in. They have just constituted, other structures, such as they have appointed ministers. They have already appointed a prime minister. They have dissolved the National Assembly in the last few days since the event of 26 July. And ECOWAS is not budging either. And I think ECOWAS will not give in. It's not likely to give in, even though it has restated its commitment to dialogue as well as negotiations as instruments for engagement with the new authorities in Niger Republic. Now, probably it is important to tackle the first things first. I am more concerned with the conversations going on in Nigeria around the role of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu since the crisis began on the 26th of July. And I am of the opinion that yes, there have been well-meaning interventions by individuals and stakeholder groups in our democracy, both in Niger and Nigeria as well. But a careful analysis of the conversation since then will also reveal that the conversation probably has been hijacked by opposition elements who seem to heap the blame more on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this crisis. But the fact of the matter is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria was not the one who instigated the coup in Niger. He is not a coup maker. Now, it is also very interesting to note that all the stakeholders that I have listened to so far, including distinguished members of the National Assembly and delegations from faith organizations and others who have paid courtesy visits on the president, began by condemning the coup itself. Now, having condemned the coup, it is now clear that there is consensus in Nigeria that the coup is unacceptable, and therefore the president of the state of Nigeria has been on the right track, no matter what the opposition elements would have been saying in this conversation. That is one. Secondly, it is also very important to understand that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, as far as I'm concerned, is building on the principles of Nigeria's foreign policy that in its active days, especially in the 1990s, lest we forget, Nigeria had contributed in reshaping both international relations and international law since the formation of ECOMOG, that's the Ecowas Monitoring Group in 1990, that enjoyed the backing of the United Nations Security Council for its intervention in Liberia. This is fundamental because that was the beginning. It was the first time that a regional bloc, a regional economic community that had additional protocols to do with democracy and good governance as well as military cooperation will be given the responsibility of military intervention in a sister or member country of the bloc. And since then, in several parts of the world, there have been such interventions with mandates from United Nations Security Council. So as far as I'm concerned, I have there is no contradiction whatsoever in what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has been doing in terms of pursuing Nigeria's foreign policy objectives. In fact, he made the point 10 days ago that he is going to resurrect the comatose foreign policy instrument of Nigeria as a basis for engagement with other nations. Yes, our foreign policy has been comatose at least in the last 2 decades. You and I know, every Nigerian knows that in the last 2 decades, really, we have not been able to define the foreign policy directives of Nigeria. But this time around, I think it is because the president has decided to pursue an active as well as a proactive foreign policy. That is why, and we have been in this state of inertia in the last 2 decades. That is why now we are waking up. It's a shock treatment that he's administering, you know, on both the diplomatic and political fronts. And that is why we are now running around, you know, to say, oh, this is correct, or this is not correct, or begging him, don't start a war with Niger. But the fact of the matter is that on bilateral basis, the president of the state of Nigeria is not declaring a war on Niger or any other country. That would have amounted to state aggression, which is also contrary to the Rome statutes. But what
Indeed.
the president of Nigeria is doing, correctly read, is that as chairman of the Ecowas, he is conveying the consensus of the 15-member group arrived at the meeting of the Authority of Heads of States and Government 10 days ago that included all the sanctions. And as much as that Nigeria loves Niger, as much as Nigeria acknowledges the historical ties between Nigeria and Niger, the interactions in trade, you know, and so many other sectors, you know, from time immemorial, Nigeria has to be part of this move.
Indeed.
To restore democracy in order to restabilize Niger. Because the crisis ignited by the military in Niger on the 26th of July has already destabilized the polity and is also capable of leading to huge humanitarian crisis that will spill into not only Nigeria, but so many parts of the West African continent. And that is what the administration of President Ibrahim Babangida realized in 1990 when it spearheaded the formation of the ECOMOG, and together with a few, initially 5 countries, they moved into Liberia, and later on ECOMOG was expanded, and most of the members of the sub-region participated both in Liberia and in Sierra Leone.
Indeed. Well, thank you for that, you know, overarching view to open up. Indeed, it is, as you say. And going back to the point you made about commentary locally, internally, domestically, not ECOWAS now, about the role of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President of Nigeria. Because Tinubu is not acting in his own capacity. The main difference, I think, I know there is not one democratically elected president in ECOWAS that will be in support of the coup. It now happens that, look, when Tinubu didn't even know that there was going to be an event like this, I think it was at his inauguration as the chairman of ECOWAS, that he had said inter alia that there is a zero tolerance for coups in our region. That much was applauded. And in fact, when the president of ECOWAS was speaking yesterday, he expressed appreciation for the way the president, our president, had been leading affairs, you know, the affairs of the body. So he acknowledged the efforts of the president. They said they were staying on that without taking anything off the table. And I think it's less than ingenious, really, when people now say that Tinubu as a person is the one who is you know, responsible for the state of affairs. No, it's a collective, and I think that is one thing that your opening has sort of brought out even more. It's a collective. Yes, I guess the big difference is that President Tinubu is one who is willing to put it out there. Other people might be more discreet about the matter, but Tinubu was never discreet about the matter that all of them, and particularly him, have a zero tolerance for coup. Now, this whole matter, the emotional matter about our relationship with Niger has been brought up. But there are also analysts who are saying that, guys, careful. Let's not be emotional about this. Let's look at the long term in this whole matter. In that regard, eminent analysts from the North have been indicating their apprehension, especially because they say, we are the people who are going to bear the brunt if anything could happen, should happen. Give me your take on that. Voices that really you can't poo-poo and say, what does he know? They are, the commentary seems to be leading towards there are other alternatives. Most people don't see where the alternatives are. What would be your commentary?
Thank you very much for that. I'm glad you have asked this question. But I'm speaking as a Nigerian, pure and simple. One, I don't have any hyphenated citizenship like Nigerian, American, Nigerian, British, or Nigerian, Nigerian, because there are several Nigerian Nigerians, among the ruling class in Nigeria. That is, people who have their ancestry traced back to Niger Republic. And they have been political players. And so many of them have allegiances also to Niger Republic. But that is beyond the point. Now, as a Nigerian, as far as I'm concerned, this crisis that has erupted in Niger Republic will have an adverse effect on Nigeria, either on the short or long term, except if it is tackled decisively. So it is even better we take it up comprehensively, like in the application of all the sanctions together, instead of the piecemeal approach that we have adopted in the cases of Mali, Burkina, Guinea, and the rest of them in the past. Why do I say so, Chief?
Well, Honorable Zoro, I beg your pardon. Let me come back to get the rationale for your position. I've got to go on a commercial break. We'll be right back, and you'll continue. Stay with us, please.
Dark marks, I've tried everything. Nivea Lumina 630 works from day one with visible results in just 2 weeks and 71% dark marks reduction in 12. Join the 1 million women already using Lumina 630 from Nivea.
Welcome back. Our guest is Honorable Sani Bello, former president, Nigerian Union of Journalists. And so, back to you, the rationale for what you said, for your position. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chief. Now, what I'm trying to say is that, devoid of all emotions, the way, the approach, the strategy that Ecowas has adopted is probably the very best in this circumstance. Because head or tail, we are having crisis in our hands, and Nigeria is also at the center of it. This dilemma can probably best be approached with this kind of renewed vigor, with the kind of fresh initiatives, like the application of all these sanctions together in order to send very strong signals to the coupists that this is not going to be tolerated, especially against the background that so far the signals coming out from Niger Republic have shown that the coup lacked any purpose. There was no need for the coup. There was no breakdown of law and order in that country. In the last 2 years, President Mohamed Bazoum had been doing his very best. He was engaged in sector reforms. He had been advancing the cause of Niger Republic. I particularly was in attendance, I can remember in attendance at a forum at the last United Nations General Assembly meeting in New York, where his entourage gave a display of some of the achievements that they have made in the area of education, girl-child education. This time around, President Mohamed Bazoum, for instance, has gotten grants from Islamic Development Bank and other partners for the provision of hostels for female students in secondary school throughout Niger, about 100 of them. Each year, 20 will be...
But Honorable, I beg your pardon for interjecting. Sorry for interjecting, Honorable. I wanted to connect with what you're saying, which, you know, you're explaining how Bazoum was doing his best. Do you have a clear view of the impressions within Niger? Because it would appear that looking at it seems to be a whole mass of support for the coup. And when you ask them, what's this all about? Why? They say there is no stability, there is no security, and all the other attendant issues. Now, whether they are right or they are wrong, whether you can trust a mob, a mass, or not, this is what they are saying. And you don't have the people, apart from Ecowas, coming out and saying that, no, we no go giri. It is democracy all the way. People are almost cheaply, within Niger, it would appear to some, to be saying, this is what we want. Does that complicate matters, the feelings of the actual citizens of the country?
Brother, yes, the citizens of Niger are frightened. Our people also across the border, especially the border communities, referring to the towns and villages, you know, that are on the edge of the contiguous border with Niger are also very jittery. But the fact of the matter is that the blame should go to Abdurrahman Chini, the leader of the coup, who, from all indications, is actually a power monger. He has been there for 12 years as head of the Brigade of Guards. Maybe he is interested in coming to power. Instead of him to resign, join a political party, and contest for election, he decided to blackmail a democratically elected president and took over for no reason. For no reason. There was no threat to stability and order in Niger. But what I'm saying is that, yes, there is this general fright that people on both sides of the border, because of the application of these sanctions, in fact, the sanctions have started biting. The lack of electricity in so many parts of that country also brought so many businesses, you know, to a halt, and they are complaining and so on. But it is better to swallow the bitter pills now in order to force the junta to see reason, because so far the delegation that have been sent by the Ecowas, as well as the delegation that have been sent by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to talk to them, have been removed. They are digging in instead. So it is only when there is pressure, and let me say this also, the demonstrations and protests, you know, that we have seen on the streets of Niger are largely instigated. We can also sponsor rallies here in Nigeria if we want. We can sponsor rallies tomorrow in support of our president. We can sponsor rallies in support of, you know, these efforts. And at any rate, it is very, very important, like I have indicated in the past, to realize that simply because ECOWAS has made contingency plans for military action does not mean it is going to invade Niger either tomorrow or on the long run. No.
Indeed.
If you look at the United Nations...
I beg your pardon. One moment, please. Sorry about it. I'm sure you know our program is interactive, and a viewer has called in wanting to join the conversation. We'll be right back to you. Good morning to you, Mr. Idris in Lekki, Lagos. Mr. Idris in Lekki, Lagos, good morning. It's a technical glitch. I'm sorry hello, Mr. Idris?
Hello. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. We've been waiting for you. Quickly now, please go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Idris,
Hello,
please go ahead.
Hello.
Well, so sorry about that, Idris. Again, returning to, Sonny Zoro, clearly you saw that we had a technical issue there. Yes, please continue.
I think it's important. If you look at the mandate, the provisions of the mandate given to ECOMOG in 1990, it set out the activities that ECOMOG was going to engage in. One of them was actually to take charge of assembly points, because already as a result of the fight between the Chastello forces and those of Yomi Johnson and the disparate groups, there was already displacement. There was already humanitarian crisis. So ECOMOG didn't go to fight either Chastello or to fight any of them, but actually to take charge of those assembly points in order to protect civilians from harm being inflicted on them by the warring factions. In this case, except if Nigerians forget, this very resolution of the ECOWAS has talked about taking African Union and the United Nations together. ECOWAS cannot on its own go to United Nations Security Council. It will go through the African Union Peace and Security Council, and the AU Peace and Security Council will also forward its own recommendations on behalf of the bloc to the UN Security Council, so that it is going to be a concerted effort. Now,
let me bring in Bobby. I beg your pardon. Let me bring in Bobby in Taraba, who has called in. Good morning, Mr. Bobby.
I'm going to hook me up.
Bobby, good morning. Bobby in Taraba.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle YORI.
Please go ahead, sir.
Hello, Uncle YORI, good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead right now.
Good morning.
Please go ahead right now. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
The network is floppy.
We can hear you. Go ahead. Oh, dear. Today is one of those kind of days. Tell you what, Honorable Zoro, I got to go on another break, so I won't interrupt you. I'll be right back. Please stay with us.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teachers.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all their demands. A familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, north and south. Community Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
Okay, welcome back. Our guest is Honorable Sonny Zoro, former president of Nigerian Union of Journalists. And let me just say, unfortunately, we missed Idris, who called in from Lekki. We missed Bobby, who called in from Taraba. And it might well have been because they were listening to themselves on the echo. That happens sometimes. Can I just counsel, please, that once you just hear our voice, just go ahead and speak and don't listen to the echo, either mine or yours. There is a delay. Just thought we should get that out of the way. The more experienced users that call into our program know this already. So please, if anybody is joining us newly, don't listen, don't bother. Just restrict yourself. Don't listen to your own voice. You might hear it. Don't listen to it. Just keep talking. Okay, we now have Olufemi in the UK. Good morning to you, sir. I think today is clearly one of those kind of days. Femi in the UK, can you hear us? Nah, it's not working.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. I just want to confirm whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. Go right ahead.
Can you hear me?
Go right ahead, please.
You can hear me.
Very well.
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Please go right ahead and don't listen to yourself in case it happens on the echo.
And I want to thank your guest. He has made a very fantastic analysis of this event.
Go ahead.
I'm not listening to myself.
Okay, go ahead. Oh, that shows how far back. So I'm just going to be quiet so you can catch up and I won't interrupt you.
I want the Ecowas to stand strong, okay? Anybody can organize rally. After all, Abacha organized so many rallies in Nigeria.
Okay. Thank you very much, Olufemi in the UK, and also Bobby and Idris. In fact, we do have these delays over the internet that now, you know, and sometimes there are these echoes. It's particularly worse today than it usually is. So that might account for the number of misses that we've been having. But Honorable Sonny Soro, thank you for bearing with us. Now, the other thing is that even as ECOWAS was, people talk about it as ECOWAS, you know, doubling down, drawing a line in the sand and all of that. Even as ECOWAS has said that all options are still in place, including, they needed to say, the use of force. But immediately, the very next sentence is that they also were not denigrating dialogue in any way, shape, or form. And they hoped, it was a hope, it is the hope of ECOWAS, even as we speak now, that dialogue shall triumph and that they won't need to go to the very last option, which is force. In terms of whether the glass is half full or half empty, I suppose there's a way you can look at it as half full in that regard.
Thank you very much, Shami. Now, when ECOWAS, you know, was started in 1975, it was an economic community. Later on, through additional protocols or subsidiary protocols, as the diplomats, you know, call it, the issue of military engagement was also included. And then there is also the issue of democracy and governance. So when ECOWAS now says all options are on the table, it is referring to this series of activities, you know, as well as, you know, the devices that are open to it to ensure that it achieves its objectives. But like I was trying to say, when the ECOWAS talks about activation and deployment of the military, that does not mean go and invade a country.
No,
go to
it's
war.
just
No, that is not the meaning. They did not, for instance, they did not say lethal force. And in the law of armed conflict or international humanitarian law, there is also a big difference between the use of lethal force as well as use of force. There is also a marked difference between the use of force and proportionate force. So the kind of role, the kind of activity that the military is going to undertake in Niger Republic, if it comes to that, and we are hoping it won't come to that,
Indeed. Let me bring on, I beg your pardon, Honorable Zoro, I beg your pardon. Let me bring in Alhaji Subaya, who has called in from Lagos. Good morning to you, Alhaji Subaya. Alhaji Subaya, good morning. I'm beginning to...
Thank you very much, Mr. Yori. Good morning.
Go ahead, please. Good morning.
Yeah. Let me just go. Let me go straight. You know. Yes, I'm listening to you. I think you are hearing me, Mr. Yori. Good morning, sir. Thank you very much. Fine. First of all, on the issue of our president, that is President Tinubu, you know, I want Nigeria to understand that the president, his hand is tight on this issue. Very, very tight. Apart from whatever any Nigerian says, we find that our president, President Tinubu, is the chairman of Ecowas, and his hand is tied in making a decision. So people should understand that. So it's incapacitated. It depends on the decision of Ecowas. So, and that is what it's going to stand for. But my concern and my worries, which I'm concerned about the Ecowas itself, if Ecowas is concerned about democracy in some countries, you know, they should be concerned about the governance of respective countries. You know, I mean, you know, that is how the government is being run. The welfareism of the people, because this is what brought about the military coup or whatever. So they should they should put it in part of their, you know, manifesto, the governing pattern, especially on democracy. Democracy is governed by the people for the people, not other way around. That is the way I look at it. They should be concerned on that regard. And more so, I would like to say, you know, irrespective of, you know, the border we have, the affiliation we have in Niger, you know, well, I want our president to understand, we all knew we have our own domestic problem, which is what Nigeria is talking about. We have a lot of things to solve in that country. But like I said in the past, the President Tinubu is incapacitated on this position. But I want him to take it with wisdom, you know, because we have our own pending problem. That is what I want to say. Thank you very much.
All right, indeed. Thank you very much for calling in, Alhaji Subaya. And Honorable Zoro, he actually makes one of the points that have been made by elders or, you know, informed commentary coming out of the north, which are more, you know, the proximity between northern states and Niger is much closer than other parts of the country. And they have also voiced that, look, we have our own issues. We have our bandits. We have our terrorists. Why you... I suppose it's part of the... I don't want to call it unfair narrative, but those who are thinking of this as a Tinubu initiative, they are using that point, that we have all these other challenges. Why are you not doing these, quote-unquote, strong-arm tactics with those? And that is what Alhaji Subaya actually sort of reiterated there. But you were already dealing with that. Would you like to continue, please?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I also want to share with you the fact that while I was in the House of Representatives, I represented, you know, a constituency that had, you know, border communities. Two of the local governments that I represented were frontline, you know, border communities, Suletankarkar and Megatari. And I have had occasions to go into Niger Republic to, you know, engage officials of Niger Republic, including the Sultan of Damagaram, you know, based on conflicts that some communities in Nigeria have had over farmlands which they owned in Niger Republic. This is, by the way, so I'm a little bit familiar of the kind of relationship and the interactions that, you know, have been going on between the two countries. That's one. But what I want to emphasize is that even the communique that came out yesterday, as well as the speech of the president of the state of Nigeria at ECOWAS, prioritized, that's the word he used, that he prioritized dialogue and negotiations above anything else. Now, I don't know why in the media and political spaces, people tend to be emphasizing about military option than the negotiations and the dialogue, which ECOWAS has not abandoned at all. Now, I can imagine, I can understand the picture of war and so on. But like I have kept saying, this is a complex process. It has to go through processes, including the involvement of the African Union and then the United Nations Security Council. Before that, nobody will go to Niger for anything. No soldier will be sent, to Niger Republic. And
thank you for making that point. I beg your pardon, sir. Thank you for making that point, Honorable. Let me bring on Otutu, Mr. Otutu, in Delta State. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, Uncle YORI.
Please go right ahead.
Good morning, Uncle YORI.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciate your program.
Oh, thank you very much.
I really appreciate your program and your co-invitee over there.
Thank you. Please continue. What did you want to add?
Yeah, I appreciate your program. All have been said about this Niger Coup, and those are military people that will stand, yes, sir. And if anything is to be done, we should take it as if it's Nigeria's problem, it's ECOWAS' problem. And all the one we've done in the past, we lose money, we lose military personnel, no compensation to Nigeria. I could remember either in Sierra Leone or Liberia, they were telling the Nigerians that, oh, your government is fighting our people. They begin to cut the hands of our Nigerian people that were there. They go with an empty hand and go back to Nigeria. So those are the repercussions that will come. So we should go on dialogue.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Tutu, for calling in. Appreciate you, in spite of the difficult line. Okay, again, adding to that, that kind of a dialogue, that kind of a conversation, Honorable Zoro, about, look, I mean, I like particularly the way the gentleman said, it's an ECOWAS thing, not a Nigerian thing. And people have, commented that the president is putting our young men in uniform in harm's way. I mean, that's, you've heard this kind of narratives. But I think it's a very important line that Mr. Otutu added there, that it's an ECOWAS thing, not a Nigerian thing.
It's an ECOWAS thing. Why is it an ECOWAS thing? Among the 15 countries, among the 15 member countries in the ECOWAS sub-region, I think 14 countries already have full-blown or potential insurgent movements. This is what studies have shown. In the ECOWAS sub-region, as of early last year, there were 7 million estimated small arms and light weapons. 7 million of them in Nigeria. 3 million in southern Nigeria and 4 million in northern parts of Nigeria. His Excellency Mohammed Ibn Chambers, the AU Special Envoy on silencing the guns, even has better figures. He has better figures. So already we are talking about a sub-region that is being swallowed by crisis, that is defined by the kind of conflict between state and non-state actors. From Casaman's region in Senegal, whose conflict has dated back to more than 3 decades, to the latest uprising in the Volta region in Ghana, there is nowhere that is not on fire. So that is why the ECOWAS must be sensitive about this. And whether we like it or not, we're not praying. We're not praying, but there is a need for Nigerians and citizens of Niger Republic also to realize that this conflict or the potential conflict that is emerging in Niger Republic is not going to stop within their territory. And Nigeria must be responsible, we must be sensitive to a conflict that is just across our border, either in terms of the humanitarian crisis that it can generate, or in terms of the flow of small arms and light weapons. Already we are contending with smuggling activities over the years which we have not been able to stop or to even stem. The smuggling of these small arms and weapons from Libya through Niger Republic and through all sorts of, land borders, but particularly Niger Republic, that shares a contiguous border across 7 states from Kebbi to Borno State. This is probably the longest border we have, much longer than the border we have with Cameroon, stretching from Taraba, to Cross River State. So if there is a crisis which is already emerging, which has begun to show, the crack has begun to show. Someone has just appeared, on the scene in Niger Republic. He was a former fighter, a non-state actor, a former rebel, to say, oh, I am going to launch a resistance movement now to free Mohamed Bazoum and to restore democracy. There you are. That's how it starts. That's how it starts. There is a country in the Gulf states that is known for sponsoring crisis. Already it has moved tanks and other lethal weapons to Chad, which is a neighbor of Niger. Only God knows there have been responses from other countries. I wouldn't want to name them, but you know very well that Turkey has also taken side in this conflict, and Turkey has been an actor. So I want Nigerians particularly, and even our brothers and sisters in Niger, but I am more concerned about the conversation in Nigeria, that in exercising our freedom of expression, we also need to exercise them with full responsibility as citizens of this country.
Indeed. Just before we go, we've almost run out of time. Before we go, I wondered if you would, offer a few words on the other worrying aspect of the group, Wagner, the Wagner group. It's lurking in the shadows. It is said to have deployed 1,500 of its mercenaries to Africa. It hasn't stated which country to. But again, if we don't get our act together as West Africans, is what I mean, then people, groups like Wagner will, America is not happy about it. America has been saying that, that they're taking advantage of the situation. That Russia, I beg your pardon, that Russia is taking advantage of the situation. And you were just talking about it extending beyond Nigeria. There's also the whole geopolitics of it all, with all the West having the interest that they do have. We don't know who of them are really our friends and who of them are really, as it were, are playing to the gallery. Just in closing.
Thank you very much. And I'm very happy you have brought this dimension. Now, Nigeria must be sensitive to a situation whereby it is being surrounded, by nuclear superpowers, and that there is going to be a nuclear superpower rivalry. Already 2 of them are stationed there. The United States has 2 bases, drone bases there, which overlook the Mediterranean and the Gulf countries. And then there is also the French intervention force. Now, these demonstrations that are being instigated in Niger Republic, you see the protesters with Russian flags. You see commentators in Niger, asking for Wagner to come in. And of course, they are already in Mali and Burkina, and they are, I'm not sure if they are on Niger soil. But there is every potential that those kind of forces can now find their way to Niger to lend support to the junta. And that will complicate matters. And Nigeria cannot afford to tolerate a situation in its backyard where there is superpower rivalry, people who have nuclear weapons. No.
Yes.
As citizens of Nigeria, we need to be sensitive and responsible. We have to bring ourselves to align with the reality of our situation. As far as I'm concerned, you see, we have to run a very active foreign policy. In the past, Nigeria has had a history of involvement in the decolonization of the Southern African region. Each of those countries that were liberated eventually partly owed its liberation to the kind of support in resources, in diplomacy, and the other ways that Nigeria gave it.
So we have a track record. I beg your pardon. We have a track record to live up to. We have a track record to live up to.
Yes, we have a track record to maintain. And I'm very happy that this president is committed to the reenactment. He wants to project the power of Nigeria. And we are very proud that within these few weeks, already that has been achieved. He has sent a clear signal that he's going to provide leadership to the Ecowas and in the world, all over the world. Probably we are taking things for granted in Nigeria, but I can tell you that citizens of the Ecowas member countries, as well as other citizens that, follow, Nigerian trends, they are very happy that Nigeria has woken up to its responsibility. The giant.
We're going to have to leave it there. I beg your pardon, Honorable Zoro. On that, optimistic note about people in Nigeria and in the region being happy at the role Nigeria is playing, as indeed the ECOWAS president did say yesterday that they were very happy with the leadership role of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. There's so much more that we could say about this, but I want to thank you. We just had the 1 hour, and it's gone like 10, 15 minutes. Thank you very much, Honorable Sani Zoro, former NUJ president.
If you allow me, Yomi, to say the last word.
Very brief,
concerned for a solution. Very brief is that Abdurrahman Cheni, the military leader, should consider releasing Mohamed Bazoum in exchange for his freedom from prosecution. And probably that will pave the way for proper negotiation.
It's an important point that you add. It's a very important point that you add. Thank you very much, Honorable Sani Zoro, former president of the NUG. And that's our program today. Please join us on Monday for a fresh edition. I am YORI FOLARIN. Bye-bye for now.
For me, one treaty for anyhow. Imagine this officer. I will clear our line. Don't cost. Bruh, come on there. Size no matter. The biggest dragon for Westeros. Now small picking face down. Climb down. Formula 1. Fear catch me.
He found the gold and asked her for just shaking me piece of the pie, and she killed him for it.
Obini. No one tells a story like we do. Showmax, Africa's original streaming service.
The following is a paid presentation by ShopX TV.
Do you spend the night trying to get comfortable? Your knees rub bone on bone. Your back and hips ache. You wake up in pain? Not anymore. ShopX TV is proud to introduce the Contour Legacy Pillow, the patented, ergonomically designed tapered leg pillow that naturally fits the contours of your legs, knees, and thighs to help align your spine and alleviate pain. Watch, when you sleep on your side, your leg falls forward, twisting your pelvis